All right, let's look at the JavaScript section of activity 2.3.1. So JavaScript is code that usually runs on a client, and we're going to look at some JavaScript code and how we potentially could manipulate it. You're not supposed to be an expert on coding, but you should be able to kind of read what it's doing and figure out some of the ideas that you're going to look at. So as before, we've got sort of a login machine and a web server that are going to be talking to each other. Not really important for right now, but the IP address of the login machine is here, and the web server's IP is here as well. For the rest of this, we're going to be looking at the virtual machine, which I have booted up here in the other tab. First step is it wants us to go to the activities folder, and then we're going to go into the 231 activities folders files. And we've got two files here which are supposed to be HTML documents. And there's two ways to know that. One is you can look at the type field here and it says that. Also remember that if we go to view and show file name extensions, you can see that these have .htmls. So now we're going to explore this hello world.html file. So if I right click on it, and I edit it with Notepad++, it'll look something like this. And to get a better view of it, if you look right here, this is the exact same file, just color-coded, so you can see what each of the different components of that file look like. So the orange areas here are what are called tags, specifically an HTML tag. A tag begins with a less than sign, and then ends with a greater than sign. And what this says is that everything after this tag and before this tag is going to be HTML data that a website's going to use. These green tags called script tags define a JavaScript section. This is code that's going to run to do an operation. And between these two red tags called the body tags, they're going to be code. It's not really code. This is language that tells what's supposed to be rendered on a page. So now what we're going to do is we're going to kind of investigate what happens when we open this file. So I'm going to go and open up the hello world.html file, and you'll see a web page that, oh, I don't see anything yet. We see that this pops up, hello world, a message. Then if I hit OK, then we see the content here, the web page displayed content. So what are the connections here? So the first thing you should have noticed is that this popped up, hello world. And so that was coming up because of this alert command. This is a message in JavaScript, a command that says display this on the screen. So that's just a little JavaScript here, alert this message. And then after this alert command was done, it rendered this data. These p tags, which you don't need to know specifically, are what are called paragraph tabs. And this essentially made a paragraph that showed up on the screen, and it displayed this information. So this was HTML that got displayed, and this was a pop-up that got generated from JavaScript. So the second thing we're going to look at is this other HTML file called hello world-button.html. And we're going to look at the, let me close out all of this. We're going to look at the code for it first. Let's see if we can identify some key features. So once again, you can see the HTML tags. There's an open and then the close. And you can tell it's a close because it has the slash here in the word HTML. So it goes from here to there. Notepad++ is really nice at showing you where blocks go away. Where blocks start and where they end, because they have this little red line here. If I click on the script tag, you can see the red line goes from here to there. So this is all going to be JavaScript. And then the body, which is what is the HTML that's rendered, is from here to here. You don't really need to know too much about what this JavaScript code is doing. Essentially, I will describe it, and hopefully it doesn't go all over your head. This declares what's called a function, which is kind of a block of code that's going to execute. Its name is my function. This creates a variable called string1 that says hello. This is another variable called string2, and this does a whole bunch of magic for getting some information out of a form. And then this is some conditional logic that does something based on what the input from the form was. Down here is a form that's going to display in the HTML. You can see that it's going to display what's your name, and then there's going to be an area for you to type in your name, and then there's going to be a button that when you click on it, it's going to call this my function and get it to execute this code. And the name of the button and the text in it should say click me. So that's a very high overview of what all this code is doing here. Once again, you don't need to be an expert in reading this, or definitely not be able to write it. But hopefully you can kind of read through this a little bit and make some connections. So let's actually open it and see what happens. So I'm going to double click on this. And kind of what we described, there's an area here called what is your name, and that's this area right here. After that, there's an input area, and that's this input area. And then there's a button that's called click me. And so this is the click me button. So that's the HTML being laid out. Now I'm supposed to type in a username there. So we'll find out what happens when I type something in there. Let's do the example they gave us here. We're supposed to figure out what's going to happen if I type in JDoe. So let me type in JDoe. I'm going to hit click me, and it says hello JDoe. Oh, that was kind of nice. And so why does it show that? Well, when the button's clicked, it calls the function, which goes up here. The first variable string 1 says hello, comma, space. The second variable string 2 gets the data that you typed into the form, which in that case was JDoe. And then as long as you type something in, it's going to alert what's the concatenation of hello, followed by whatever you typed into the form. If you don't type anything in and hit click me, it says please enter your name, because string 2 represents what you typed in, and if it's nothing, then it says that. Alright, so we've done that. We've gone through and described everything that happened in the code. And so once again, what JavaScript is for is your dynamic logic of your website that makes it think and make decisions, and HTML is just for showing information and organizing it.